On today's tractor episode, you're going to get the privilege of watching me wrestle this onto here. Now, while it won't be as fun as mud wrestling, it'll still be entertaining. And you'll get to see me get covered in baby powder. Now, this old tire has got chunks coming out of it. Needs changed really bad. Yesterday, I went ahead and put the one on the other side so I could see what works and what didn't. And actually, everything went really well. So we'll try to duplicate it today. Keep in mind that the way I removed it yesterday, it's not going to be reusable. But they were old, had no reason to keep them, and it made it a lot easier to get it off the wheel. First up, I want to block the opposite wheel really good. Now we need to go around and jack it up. Some wood blocks and a bottle jack right under the axle. Works pretty good at getting it up off the ground. Get her jacked up so your wheel will rotate. And you'll also want to put a jack stand under it. Put a nice flat right there. Put a jack stand. Next up, got to get all the bolts broke free on the inside of the wheel disc there. Now these wheels are marked 93, or they were built in 93. Dad must have had at least one new tire put on and new wheels 30 years ago. So these bolts, I don't think have been out since. So these nuts on the back are tight. So I rolled around to where I can get access to one. I put it in gear. And what I did yesterday was get the wrench on it. And if you just go steady pressure, it's kind of hard to get them free, but if you give them a good jerk, they'll usually come loose. There was a couple on the other wheel I had to use a little heat on, but they all came loose. Now be careful when you got it in gear, because you go pulling on this tire, that one's going to try to turn the other direction and you can end up rolling it off the jack. Another good reason to have the jack stand in there. Although with the tire still on it, it's not going to fall far. But just be careful when you're doing it. Okay, got them all broke free. Now I'll just buzz them the rest of the way out with my wimpy Walmart impact. It's all held in place by these large carriage bolts. We'll pull out what's loose. Which is all but one. So now, we need to get the wheel broke free from the disc. There we go. Okay, I got this out of the way. Now we can go ahead and pull the valve stem. It's got these two-piece stems, so we'll pull the big centerpiece out maybe. And there's a plastic nut that holds the stem into the rim. And they just usually crumble. Now that we've got the air out of the tire, time for the really fun part. That's breaking the bead loose. And fortunately yesterday, on the other tire, my tire machine was able to get it done. Now if you don't have a tire machine, a lot of guys out in the field will run like another tractor or a truck. They'll run the tire of that up on here and smash it down and get the bead to break. I've done that on some other tires, but With the tire machine, hopefully this will pop it loose. It did definitely take several tries yesterday, but it finally got the job done. We'll see what happens. Like I said, these tires are rotten. Work it around a couple different spots until it finally pops a section loose. Tears the whole sidewall out. That's okay too. I'm good with that, since I intend to attack it with a sawzall later. Rotten. Yep, that's left the bead attached. I think I'll bust a section like that on the other side of the tire. And then possibly go ahead and tighten the sawzall. This tire is definitely the more rotten of the two. Hey, that actually got the bead on this side. Yeah, look at that. This all depends on how long the tires have been on there. Let's try the other side again. See if we can't get. Would be nice if we get that bead pulled free. Because otherwise we'll just have to fight it later. Oh my. May just rip the tire out there like a cannon. I'm not real particular as long as it comes off. Alright, I'm going to take this out, pop that far bead off of the tread, and then we'll work on this side. Any kind of tire work, soapy water is your friend. This is about half dish soap, half water. Pry one side up, push the other side down. And that's got one side all the way off. Now I'm going to go get the sawzall. These tires are all nylon cord with the exception of the bead area, and it's got steel cords in it. So I use the angle grinder, cut through the steel cords, and then just buzz the rest of the way around with the sawzall. Put a block of wood in there so I don't end up cutting my wheel. Since that bead won't break loose at all, I think I'll just go ahead and cut around the sections that I haven't already broke, and that'll get the majority of the tire out of the way. Then I can worry about chiseling the rest of the bead out. That's another problem with these, is the tube is pretty much adhered to the wheel, which adds another level of difficulty getting the tire pulled off there. So now I'll just cut the old tube. That way we can get it peeled off and out of the way. It's kind of stuck. Okay. Tube's ready for the bend. Now we just got a little bit of bead to get off there. Wow, it's rusty. I think I'll come in with the angle grinder, try to cut that without getting into the wheel. And there we go. Never even nicked the wheel. Well, like the other side, this wheel's got a lot of surface rust on the inside, but there's still a lot of metal there. So we will do a little grinding, a little work with the scaler. Just anything we can do to get that smoothed out as much as possible. That's what I did on that other side. It worked good. We'll also put some anti-rust stuff on the disc here, because it's rusted too, but still got a lot of meat. We'll clean all this up. What I'm going to be coating all this stuff in, the disc and the inside of the wheel, is rust converter from theruststore.com. Stuff seems to work pretty good. It encapsulates the rust, converts it into something that doesn't rust. It works good. And right now I'm just trying to protect everything on the wheel and the hub. Once I get the tire on, and when I have time, I'll unbolt the disc from the axle, take the whole wheel and assembly off, and blast it and repaint it properly. Right now I'm just trying to get the new tires on, keep everything from rusting, especially the inside. That stuff, once it gets on there, it turns black. Nice hard coating. Put a couple of coats on that. Right now I'm going to go out and start knocking the rust off the wheel. Yeah, I've got a good start on cleaning the rust off the wheel. I just got done putting a second coat of the rust converter on the disc. Now what I'm going to do is clean up the wire wheel, all the bolts and everything that hold the hoop onto the disc, and then clean up the inside of the hoop, and I'm going to bolt it back together, because it's a lot easier to continue working on that wheel when it's on the tractor, where it's mounted and you can just rotate it and grind on it, whatever you need. And it's real easy to put the tire on with the wheel on the tractor, as opposed to trying to do it on the ground. And the disc is pretty much dry. Now I'm going to put the hoop back on it, bolt it back in place. That way we can get back to working on the hoop. Okay, you want to make sure your bolts are nice and tight and that the inside of this little loop is up against your disc. You can see down here on the bottom, that step on that loop is what centers the wheel up on the disc. So just make sure everything's good and tight. Now, back to rust correction. I went through and ground these edges down. I need to take the scaler and run into these and knock that loose. And then hit anything out in the middle. It's got a little rust. And then we should be ready to brush this down with the rust proofing. In case you couldn't tell, that was a lot of fun. Next up, we'll coat that with the rust stuff. And this stuff actually has a chemical reaction to the rust. So if you've ground it down to bare metal everywhere and there's no rust left, you'd be better off just painting it. One thing I did think about using that would have worked really slick is fluid film. But it might have a bad reaction with the rubber. So I had to kind of watch it unless it was oil resistant rubber. So I didn't use it, but that would be if it doesn't mess with the inner tube, that would be an excellent coating for the inside of the wheel because it just doesn't dry out and keeps it from rusting. Okay, here's how the wheel looks now. Got 2 good coats of that rust converter on it. Hit it with the torpedo heater a little, cured it out. So now we're to the fun part. And start putting the new tire on. Okay, on mounting the tire, lubrication is definitely your friend. You either want lots and lots of soapy water, or I'm using actual tire compound because I mount tires all the time, so I got a bucket of it. We're going to give it a healthy coat around the bead that goes on first. Remember, you do not want to use oil or anything like that that will attack the rubber. Okay. That coated. Bring this over. Now we're going to hump this up into place. Start working that bead around on that one side. A set of vice grips is handy because you can put it on the wheel and keep your one edge of the bead from popping off. All right. Roll it around. Start working that bead. Jack it up a little more so we got some more clearance. This tire's kind of squished, which makes it taller. And there's the first bead on there. And I'll pull the vice grips out. I know you've all been waiting on this since my teaser at the beginning of the video. But this is when we play with the baby powder. Now I blew this area off with the leaf blowers. You don't want a bunch of stuff stuck to your tube. The problem is the tubes as they come out of the package are kind of tacky. inside of the tires tacky. Makes it hard to shove everything in, makes it hard for the tube to align where it wants to. So the same thing I do on dirt bike tires, I powder. And that just instantly takes the tackiness away. And this is still the good cancer-causing baby powder made out of talc. I don't know how the cornstarch works. I haven't tried it. We're also going to powder around inside the tire a little bit. I like to add a little bit of air to the tube, give it a little shape. We go to sticking it up in there. Take the little plastic ring off. Okay, I got the stem hole aimed at the bottom. Just for a little reference, we can adjust it later. The stem on the tube is offset on one side, so make sure you aim it. You know, like if you make, I'm going to aim that toward the inside because that's where the stem hole is at. Getting this tube in there is a little bit of a pain. But just imagine how much of a pain it would be if all the rubber and everything was still super tacky. And try to keep the tube as straight as possible. Well, we'll air it up and let it down a couple of times as we're doing this to get all the kinks out. Another reason for the powder. Get in there over the lip of the wheel. This is also why I hadn't put any tire goop on this bead yet, so I don't have to mess with it. That's the other thing, this tire is really pinched together from shipping and everything. I'll go on the inside edge, figure out where the stem is. The stem will still be way too far in since, like I said, the tire is pinched together, but we'll put a little more air in the deal and start expanding it out. Trying to get it lined up. Said that stem is not in the hole yet on the wheel. I'm just reaching in between. Now I'm rolling it around to where the stem is aimed toward the hole better. You want that straight in the hole as you can get it. Now, your tube has a little bit of shape, still kind of compressed in between the two because of the way that tire is. I thought the rust was bad a while ago. So now, let's lube up this bead. I'm going to lube up the inside edge where it's got to go over the wheel. And you still want to lube up the this outside so it can slide up onto the rim when you start airing it up. Yeah, I'd say without a tube, this tire, since it's compressed, would be a pain to get the bead seated. Be one of them where you shoot some ether in and try to blow it off the tractor. That or a bazooka cannon or something. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in. Make sure my bead, or the tube is in no way inside the bead there where it'll get pinched. And also out here, gets back away from the tire. So now we're going to start putting the second bead on. And once again, the vice grips come really in handy. So you make that, pull it in there, you can see the tube. Make sure you don't get the tube pinched in between your tool. Put the vice grip back on. Another reason I paint them after I've got the tire on. Okay. Now, I'm going to roll that to the top so gravity's on our side. And I'm going to start working this tire on. Just when you reach in there and grab, make sure the tube is not in between your tool and the wheel. And really on these, you've got plenty of room. On a tight-fitting dirt bike tire, sometimes it can be a major problem. And you can tell if you're metal to metal or if you've got some rubber in between. Start working it around. That up. Make sure your tire goes into the drop center, which is pinched as the tire is. That's really not a problem. Okay. Now, go this way. You can really see the tube down in there now. And there's your second bead. Piece of cake. Take your vice grips off. Roll your tire around. Make sure that the tube is not in between the bead and the wheel. Do the same thing on the inside. Like I said, I got miles of room on either side because of that tire being pinched. So it looks good here. Oh, it looks real good. I'm going to bring it back around. Try and get to the stem. And this time I'm going to try to get the stem up through the hole. Where's my stem? Try to get a hold of the stem, pull it up through the hole. And at this point, a set of needle nose pliers is handy. So you can hold on to that stem. Keep it up in the hole, and then you can start adding some air. Take another look. Make sure there's no tube pinched anywhere. She's hitting the bead to the wheel. No tube inside. I'm going to bring this around to where the stem's at the bottom. I'm going to put it in gear. That way I can pull around on the tire a little bit and center that stem, because it'll drag that tube around with it. And the cord is sticking up through the wheel. Always make sure to keep your fingers out of the gap there, because when that slides up on the rim, you take off the end of the finger. I'd like 10 psi. We'll probably have to go up to 20. Get it pushed all the way out on the wheel. There we go. Yep, right at 20 psi. Put a little more in, make sure it's fully seated, then I'll completely air it down. All right. Roll it all around, make sure it's all the way up on the wheel. Inside's good. So now I'm gonna pull the valve core back out and let her completely deflate. It should not come off won't come off the bead anymore. Shouldn't. Tighten that little ring down. All right, she's all aired down. Must have had this side a little greasier than the other side because it was trying to pull back off the wheel bead. So I stopped it, put the core back in. Now we'll slap the chuck back on. Take this baby up to about 12 pounds. That's where I intend to run it. I may have to run it up a little higher to get the bead back on there, but it's going to end up at 12. And there she is. That's the first time in a very long time this tractor has had new rubber all the way around. And it looks good. That took me about 3.5 hours, you know, messing with the camera, cleaning the wheels, doing all that work to it. So, certainly nothing wrong with taking it to a shop. Shop quoted me, the shop that I bought the tires from, quoted me $45 a piece to swap out the tires. So that doesn't sound bad, as much work is involved, but the problem is that they're not going to do anything extra to the wheel. They're going to get it just as good as they can get it to where it holds air. And if a rust barnacle chews through your tube in 6 months and you got to bring it back, well, it's just better for them. And I'm not faulting them at all. They don't have time, and that's just not what they do as far as restoring the rusty wheel. And I'm just the kind of guy, I know time is money, but I'm the kind of guy that just likes to do everything that I possibly can by myself. And that was an enjoyable 3.5 hours. I got to cut stuff with the Sawzall, dang near set stuff on fire. I had one tire smoking pretty good, and I was cutting it with a wheel. But that's all for now. The only thing left to do is give her a test drive.